Hello, welcome to Western Montana Views. I'm Ryan.
I'm Lee.
Welcome back, guys.
Hi.
Today, we're going to have the topic of all topics.
Generationally.
Millennials and baby boomers.
Right. Why don't you start off?
Sure, and start with the boomers.
Yeah, we'll stay chronological.
All right. Let's start out with one. So, in 1981, a student could go to school for about $900 at the University of Washington.
That sounds about right.
Today, we're now well past 12,000. That also sounds right.
That's crushing.
That's terrible, actually, because how do you get ahead, especially if you're paying, a rather serious rate? Like, I was paying like 7% on like 10,000.
Yeah, that's ungodly.
And that was just 10,000.
Right.
That wasn't 30, 40, 50, and that's the norm, I mean, that's how much it has doubled since I graduated college.
Well, not to enrage the viewers, but when I graduated 30 years ago, I walked away with $2,000 in debt.
$2,000 in debt. I don't even know if you can buy all your books for only $2,000 now.
No, well, the reason that it was so little was because I was going on the GI Bill.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right.
Right, and then I did have some grants.
Mm-hmm.
And but still, $2,000.
Right.
As compared with, how much did you say?
2,000 versus 12,000 a year.
Wow.
So 900 a year versus 12,000 a year.
Right.
Is the current going rate, if not more.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Here's what else I have. Boomers also. So we're gonna get into basically the how they're the same. They're they're different. We're gonna get into basically the boomers and the millennials on this.
Sure.
So the next thing I have is that boomers started their political power in the late 70s and early 80s.
Absolutely.
I would say they first got their vote after they tried to vote at 18, but they were getting drafted at 18. They were only able to vote at 21. They got a new constitutional amendment, so that at 18 they could vote. So now they didn't truly fully realize their power till about the 70s or the 80s.
No, right after the Summer of Love. And I'll tell you what's significant about that.
Sure.
Is that being a hippie was a wonderful lifestyle when you're broke.
Okay.
But when you started having the option of making some money, you got rid of the love beads and the psychedelic shirts, and you pulled on that yuppie.
You're telling me you can
costume.
make money? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, there was actually employment back in the 70s, yeah.
Let's see. I'll give you the thing that probably sucks the most for boomers right now is that boomers are way more affected by coronavirus and its side effects.
Well, I'm 65 and I wear my mask and I decontaminate items coming into my home and I take it absolutely seriously. Well, Dad, I'm 33, and I still have to try to, be safe, as far as I try to stay in the household. I try to just make it work, Yeah.
And it's just trusting the science. It's just making sure that I'm not contributing my lifestyle to your, death
Demise.
style.
My demise.
Yeah, there's a lyric in Metallica. It's like lifestyle becomes your death style.
Oh, true. I always
That's off one of the crappier albums. There you go.
I always have to giggle when someone okay, this is the dark side of me. Someone bites the bullet, swimming with sharks, and all of a sudden one day they get eaten by a shark. And sure enough, there's some dipshit on the beach going, well, at least he died doing something he loved.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I think not.
I wonder about the people that fall into hot pots in Yellowstone, or it's like, did they really die doing what they love?
Yeah, melting.
Yeah.
In a mud pot.
Or being buried in an avalanche.
Yeah. Anyway,
we
we digress.
Yeah, we're sick. Let's see. So,
yeah, we were affected by the coronavirus.
And, and so my, point right there is like, what is the thing that sucks the most right now, this second, as part of your generation? So that was my number 3, basically, was boomers are way more affected by coronavirus.
Yeah, for sure.
In their lifestyle choices.
For
if they
sure.
pick the wrong thing, I think it'll really hurt them.
Yes.
If they're not careful. Let's see. Boomers had more choice in the number of jobs, but way less choice in their technology and different jobs.
Right. Well, speaking for myself, I've said I'm an analog man in the digital world.
Right.
Case in point, I mean, how difficult is it for you to home teach me at that, my ways in the digital world? It's probably rather frustrating to you.
I mean, I've had experience working in the tech world before, so it's not my first time working with it, but at the same time, it can be a little frustrating at times. I mean, but I try to slow down. I try to figure out, okay, what does he need to know? What are the things that...
What does he need to know, and when does he need to know it?
Well, I don't put a specific date on it. It's just more about, okay... if we can take on each other's duties and roles, it's going to help us both. So,
oh, sure. If we learn from each other,
yeah,
then we'll grow.
Yeah.
Kumbaya.
Let's see.
And
then 5 is
well, to your last point,
okay.
That we had more choice of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you had more jobs, but I think you had more jobs, but you had way less choice in jobs. So I think you had more jobs total.
Where you went to work was clearly defined by your education at the time. If you were a high school graduate, hopefully, or a high school dropout, you could get a job in the logging industry in Montana, and you could have a family, you could buy the house, you could have the new pickups, as long as you stayed employed in the lumber industry.
And you could, and this was both union and non-union jobs.
Right. Now,
correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
The non-union jobs, the loggers, the union loggers would call them jippos. Well,
okay.
The jippo was what we now in the 21st century call mom and pop operations.
Okay, I didn't know if that was a slang or something.
It depends on who you talk to. I'm sure that people could find something to be upset about what I just said. So, whatever, dude.
What can you do?
Whatever, dude. But we did have more jobs, and it was easier to get these jobs too because your employer at the time was elderly.
Okay.
Right? They weren't sophisticated in technological manner. And those jobs you could literally get with the shake of a hand by knocking on a door, asking, are you hiring? They either were or they weren't. Well, you can't do that in the 21st century.
Oh, no. You'll get looked at. Like, I remember when I was wanting a second job at some point, and I was just looking to work at the grocery store, and this was even just back in 2008, 2009. They're like, go online.
Yeah, I can't stand that thought that that's the only way that you can get a job now. I mean, even if you don't have a footprint in the digital world, if you're not if you don't actively use Twitter, if you don't use all these different platforms that everyone just knows and can just rattle off, that's a black mark against you. I mean, you should get a medal for being able to avoid the bullshit.
Yeah, you would think.
But there I digress again.
So, and then basically I had that you guys basically came to age during a different era. You guys came to age, probably, teenage years or maybe a little younger. There was the McCarthy era,
That was before me.
Okay, yeah, admittedly it was, but I think there was some lasting damage with it.
True.
60, the 60s, JFK, RFK, MJK Jr., all, Vietnam.
Yeah, there were high points and low points. The low point is we lost JFK in 63. The high point is that JFK started the Green Berets. He also hyper accelerated the space program, to the moon and back. He didn't realize it. He couldn't see it, but he started it. So That was bad. RFK, I was like an 8th grader watching him before he was killed.
But I've seen archival footage, and, both sides would say that he was basically a rock star, pretty much, at the time. RFK.
RFK, he had his admirers.
Bobby
Martin Luther King for civil rights, just a phenomenal leader. And his assassination on the evening news, that's how I learned about it was, Chet Huntley and David Brinkley, bad news today. Martin Luther King got killed. Yeah, no shit. Even Oswald back with the JFK.
Ruby,
we're all traumatized as a nation. We're all sitting around each other's TVs. The babysitters are probably no different than they are today. Turn on the TV, plunk your kids down. Well, Johnny and I were sitting there watching TV, black and white TV, and here comes JFK's assassin up through the garage. And what do 2 little 8-year-olds know?
Oh, how did anybody know
and then
that was going to happen? Nobody knew
Then
that was
Jack Ruby steps forward and goes blam, blam, blam.
Right.
And it's like, look, this is America.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was traumatizing. Vietnam, whether you went there or not, no matter how you survived Vietnam, whether you went there as a serviceman, whether you avoided the draft, whether you were for the war as you sat at home or against the war, whether you protested or not, that was a horrible era. And I served, in that era.
Yeah.
So everyone has a different story to tell.
Yeah.
If you want to call bullshit on someone, you might want to take a minute to walk a mile in their shoes.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this is kind of about, is kind of like, we're pointing out the differences, but we're also pointing out where we're basically the same. So we'll get on millennials.
And where we're vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a couple of my notes about baby boomers, is that the number one thing, these are concerns of the baby boomers that I've gleaned from different resources and stuff. The number one concern for baby boomers right now is saving enough for retirement. Okay. Now, compared to their parents, who never retired and worked until the day they died, right? They have to save 1 or 2 decades more than in the past in order to retire.
Yeah.
Their second concern is caring for their elderly parent. My parents have passed, but I can relate to that. That's a big concern. Obviously, their health, and why their health is such a big concern is because they're typically living longer. They've had the benefit of better medicine than their parents did.
Sure.
So it's like, oh great, I get to live longer, but I also get to suffer longer. They're wondering who'll take care of them. I mean, they see the collapse of our medical society of benefits that people get for in-home care, elderly institutions. So that's a big concern. They're also kind of bummed out because they're working is like no longer an option. We've grayed out, 65, incapable of learning technology, too old to lift that beam.
Right.
You're out, pops. So, do I look for work? Hell no, I'm retired.
Let's see. So let's get on to millennials a little bit.
Okay, all right. Yep.
If you don't mind.
No.
Did you have more?
Well, not that we won't revisit in the future, but no, moving on. Millennials.
Yeah. We just want to stay on time, stay on target. So
yeah,
millennials. You want to lead off with that, or what do you want to do? I can lead off with this.
Well, okay. Let me dovetail into the boomers' concerns with the millennials' concerns.
Okay. All right.
Okay. This is what I kind of found interesting. Yes, we talked about the debt, $1.56 trillion. The average debt to a millennial after graduation, $32,000+. Now, coupled with the current minimum wage, When are they ever going to get out of debt? Answer, never.
Yeah.
Sucks. Unemployment is high for them because, you know what? I wouldn't work either for that chicken feed. The wages have not kept up with inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum wage is $7.25 per hour.
Yep.
It's been increased since 2009. But to afford the rent requires 2 full-time jobs. 2 full-time jobs on the part of a millennial. So if you're sitting around criticizing millennials,
so that's 80 hours right there.
If you're sitting around on your couch going, those no good younger generation millennials, they just don't want to work. You need 2 full-time jobs just to afford rent. Mm-hmm. They're too busy paying bills to build wealth or invest in retirement. They're screwed. We screwed them. Well, I didn't. But the powers that be certainly did. The institutions that we have certainly did. Mm-hmm. So before you criticize a millennial, walk a mile in their shoes. Job environment. There's no long-term loyalty.
None.
Or security.
From either the employer or the employee at this point.
Well, from employers there's stress. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like...
And there's no benefits either. I mean, they're eliminating those too.
They're forced to be mercenary in their employment.
Yeah.
And if someone offers you better pay per hour only, you will jump ship and go to them, and you'd be a fool not to.
Oh, especially if you have bills to pay, especially if the breathing out your door. I mean, come on. I mean...
Yeah, continuing on, housing costs. House costs 39% more for houses than it did in the 80s. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's such a huge number. From the 80s? That's incredible. That's insane. Mm-hmm. They can't buy houses because they're paying rent and student loans.
Yep. There's no income to save, basically, for that down payment.
Here's an interesting...
I don't know a single millennial that has gotten their house without their parents helping out a little bit if they got a house. I mean...
That's the only way that...
To get the down payment.
That's the only way. That's the only way that people can acquire houses, is if they have someone that can help them with the down payment. Because once you own the house, typically you pay less in your mortgage than you would in your rent.
And that's where I'm hoping like this venture and maybe other ventures in the future come in and help us out, you know, as far as bringing income in for me. But as far as this is concerned, it's a big uphill mountain to climb.
Yeah, I might say that, you know, I'm retired, but I mean, I'm a capitalist. I like money just as well as the next guy. So, to be honest, you know, full disclosure, you know.
You do like a pontoon boat once in a while.
Yeah, I need a new pontoon boat because my neighbor just bought one.
No. I mean, I'm not even talking neighbors coveting other neighbors' shit. I'm more talking about there are things you do like and you will buy.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Here's an interesting little datum. Millennials are worried just as much about their aging parents as the baby boomers are worried about their aging parents.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's worrying about when...
Well, I mean, you got to see it from my side. I'm looking at Tom Selleck. I'm looking at even John Goodman's new, you know, commercial where it's like Slotomania. It's like, oh no.
Have you lost all morals
Well,
there?
Some of them, and then for sure on some of those questions, and also, every single one of us is asking, could our parents fall for that and screw the pooch and not only hoard all the wealth but lose it all too before
easily
that scares the shit out of us.
How many times
that pisses us off too?
It scares the shit out of you and pisses you off, because you don't know what grandma's doing online.
I mean thankfully mom is smart as a whip. And thankfully, you don't get on too much. But yeah.
See, there's a safety benefit for being ignorant with the technology. So
no. And the thing is I think there are good things to do.
There is a benefit.
Yeah. Well, even I have like separate devices. Like I have like my Chromebook for browsing, but you know this computer right here is mostly for the editing and you know.
Yeah.
Rendering. So.
Well, you know. to be honest. I have a little laptop, and I use it for for shopping.
Yeah.
But I never buy anything on that.
You're just browsing then.
I'm browsing. I'm window shopping.
Sure. Yeah.
And if I really have my heart set on something,
you make mom buy it.
I make mom do it because that ain't my department.
Right.
So another thing is like our mental health, our mental well-being. Everyone is so stressed out, and COVID does not help the situation. And the powers that be are not helping the situation. Mm-hmm. And, everyone's like about to freak out. And I would encourage everyone to take a breath and think about what you say and think about what you do. Because ultimately, if you have a bed to sleep in, you're going to want to sleep in it tonight. Mm-hmm. And if you're a dick and do something that you cannot take back, I guarantee you will never sleep in your bed again. Mm-hmm. That's just common sense. Mm-hmm. That's the download.
That's the download. Yeah.
That's the download. Mm-hmm. So you had some points.
Yeah, I got a few lists. They kind of coincide with yours.
Sure.
For example, total millennial student loan debt is $1.75 trillion.
Is that what? Yeah, well, close enough. Same thing when you get into the trillions.
Yeah. And we'll be probably hitting $2 trillion probably in the next year or two.
Sure.
Easy. Let's see. I would say millennials are very underrepresented in major positions of authority and power. Everything from dog catcher to senator. I mean, we just do not have people in my generational group in those leadership roles.
Well, fortunately...
And that's a problem.
Fortunately, that will change in the near future. Because you have to remember that even before COVID showed up.
Yeah. And everyone will say, oh, well, you'll just have AOCs and other things like that. It's like, how about we have more leaders so that we can kind of dilute some of that out, some of the crazy out. But instead, no. We just have tons and tons and tons of baby boomers and Gen X that basically are just hogging up all the space.
Choking up the progress.
Yeah.
Well, what I was saying was, even before COVID, the baby boom generation is going to die off as fast as they were born. You had the baby boom. It was
baby
a boom.
Bust, it
was a baby boom. It's a baby bust.
Yeah.
And the top end of my generation, the first 10 years of my generation, they're well into their 70s.
Right.
They're already burying their parents. Mm-hmm. They're already probably freaking out if you haven't come to terms with the circle of life and what's inevitable. They're freaking about that, and they're going to die. They're going to in the next 5-10 years, all those gray-haired leaders that everyone is so upset about choking up progress, they're going to pass away. That's the nicest way I can say. They're not going to
without
be
naming
here.
names. Without naming names, we don't want to say.
No. I don't wish anyone harm, but right. I mean, it's nature. You got the baby boom, you got the baby bust,
right.
And as they go away in the next 10 years, they're going to be replaced with younger people from different generations.
One can hope. I know my generation will screw up here and there, like no doubt about it. But at the same time, it's like we've had no help getting us to where we need to go. So if we actually earn a spot, we have actually truly earned that spot.
Absolutely,
I think.
Absolutely. And you were talking about the boomers and their coming of age, the wild '60s. JFK, sure. RFK. Martin Luther King Jr. in Vietnam. Tell me about some of the things that millennials have had to deal with in their coming of age.
Millennials had a crazy coming of age time too. I mean, right after the year 2000, which were named after millennials. Crossing over into that, as far as adolescence or whatever. And then 9/11 hit.
9/11.
In 2001, yep. 3,000 Americans died in one day.
How old were you?
I was 13.
Well, thanks for making me not do the math. Yeah. You're 13.
Yeah. I thought we were heading into some major war. I thought we were heading at least into some big Vietnam kerfuffle, at least.
It was more than that. As I watched it.
And I didn't understand a lot about Vietnam, but I knew it was going to be some protracted big thing.
As I watched it, I knew immediately it was tantamount to Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
It was going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so grateful when...
And the attack was so offensive because most of the targets were, the problem is it wasn't military. A lot of them were civilian,
I was grateful.
It wasn't a straight up
I was grateful
military.
that there weren't more terrorist teams
activated that day.
Doing the same thing across the nation.
Yeah, me too.
Because they could have.
I know.
Yeah.
So, anyway, thankfully things have gotten better, at least
Iraq
since then. Iraq.
Yeah, been there 20 years. 20 years.
Yeah, we've been in Iraq almost 20 years. Yep. Don't know how much has gotten better. I've known people that have been in Fallujah twice.
Right.
Been in other places twice. They take it, then it gets retaken by ISIS, and then they have to retake it again.
Yeah.
How about that shit?
That's
some shit, man.
That's the downside of not seizing territory and keeping it. Anytime that we've given the territory back, we've had to go back and get it again and again and again. It's a bad strategy.
That's why you shouldn't go to war unless you absolutely friggin' have to. I mean, that's honestly the gist of it.
Well,
that's part of it, at least in my opinion.
I'm not prepared to talk too much on that.
I know you're a vet. I know you have different opinions, but that's just my
right. I'm just unprepared today.
Right. Let's see.
I'm sure we'll be back.
Let's move off Iraq. Let's go to the Great Recession. So the Great Recession. I graduated college in 2009, and there basically was no jobs.
Damn it.
That we were, and the thing that really made me mad too is basically we were told from basically kindergarten to 12th grade, go to college. It doesn't matter what you go to college for. Just do anything. You'll get a job. And then that was a lie.
Nothing.
That turned out to be a lie.
But it worked for you.
Yeah, in a very weird exigent circumstance, but that's not the average norm though. A lot of people I know had to go back for master's degrees, doctorals, that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure.
Because they couldn't get a job.
Oh, sure.
I was in IT. I was kind of needed, but, that was kind of a needed field at the time, was IT.
Oh, sure.
A lot of fields that were not needed at the time.
Yeah, there were bona fide professions waiting for more and more professionals to join their ranks. And then there was the artificial professional businesses that weren't hiring at all.
So now you need a master's degree to compete against people with bachelor's degrees.
Right.
And you need a doctoral degree to match against people with master's degrees. In the end, what does that put you? At least, what, $200K in the hole?
Yeah.
Just for the chance at a job?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, you're probably at the upper echelon of society, but you're like $200,000 in debt.
Right.
You have to pay $200,000 in debt to be in that upper echelon of society.
Oh yeah, and then don't you need a PhD now?
Yeah.
Just about. It's that same paper.
In some experimental field or something that would make headlines or make someone go ooh ah. I mean, you don't want to be the guy known as the toe fungus guy, maybe but maybe that's the thing that saves America. Who knows?
Yeah, and I kind of have this bad taste in my mouth with the idea that universities have become really nothing more than paper mills.
Oh, yeah.
No, there's bona fide, if you're a doctor, yes, sir. If you're a scientist, yes, sir. If you're an engineer, well, yes, sir. And all that stuff. But, if I'm going to graduate with, expressive dance and I can't find a job, I shouldn't be surprised because I'm not a very good dancer anyway. I mean, okay.
So, now that we've concluded with that, We just want to point out, I just want to point out, though, that I think every generation runs into circumstances, runs into problems, runs into leadership issues, runs into, errors and eras of their time that just wasn't their time. They have to deal with those consequences.
But there's no reason why we can't understand each other.
No, and that's just it. I think if you have like an honest conversation, and like you said earlier, before we got on, we had a little mini chat and was like, don't be like you baby boomers or you millennials, kind of.
Right. You millennials.
But right, but the thing is nothing ever gets done. When you have that such accusatory tone, before you even get any of the facts out, it'd be the same if it was like you left winger, you right winger, So I think what it is I think there are clear differences between my generation and your generation, but I also think that there's a lot of similarities that get passed down as well.
And anytime
focus more on the similarities and not the differences.
Anytime that two people with some different past experiences sit down and share their experience, the better off they are and the more that they grow intellectually. Mm-hmm. Converse. Don't argue. And maybe you might just learn something if you keep your ears open and your mouth shut sometimes. I wish y'all love and luck and good health. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we've got immediate dangers that we need to face right now. And the number one thing is COVID. So mask up if you aren't. Don't go to the hospital if you are not wearing your mask and you just are out dancing.
If you can even get in the parking lot. Some of them are even having their parking lots being made into hospitals now.
Yeah. If you take no safeguards against COVID, don't go whining to a hospital when you get sick. Please, have a little class.
Right. They're there to help you out.
Yeah. For those that are doing something, wearing a mask, exercising your social distance, keeping clean surfaces, caring for your neighbor a little bit. Mm-hmm. Your neighbor might be someone that doesn't protect themselves. It doesn't mean that you need to be unfriendly to them. You can still wave at them. You can still smile at them. Chances are your neighborhood is probably one of the quietest places that you can be, and it allows you to sleep in your own bed at night. So keep it in mind.
Yep. All right, ready to wrap up?
I'm ready to wrap up.
All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. Welcome to West. Thank you for coming to Western Montana Views. I'm Ryan.
I'm Lee.
Check us out on our YouTube page. More pages to follow, including on Twitter and own website. Hope you have a great day.
See ya.
See ya.